Good morning. My name is Deborah Lee, and I'm one of your HUD VASH regional coordinators in our VHA homeless programs. Today I'll be providing an overview of the HUD VASH program.
What is the HUD VASH program?
HUD VASH stands for Housing and Urban Development, HUD, VA Supported Housing, VASH programs. This program is a partnership between HUD and the VA and has two primary components. The first component is permanent independent community-based housing, and the second component is VA case management services. In HUD VASH, case managers assist veterans primarily with determining eligibility for health care and then to make sure that they meet the definition for being homeless. During this time, veterans are also provided access to needed health care services, which may include medical, mental health, and substance abuse services. Once this has been established, the veteran is then assisted with completing all of the documents and forms that are required to be referred to the Housing Authority. After they have completed all of these forms, they are then taken to the Housing Authority to determine income eligibility and whether or not the veteran is on the Lifetime Sex Offender Registry. These are our only exclusionary factors. At this point, the veteran can then complete the process for getting their voucher and can start looking for their permanent home. VA case managers at that point begin helping the veteran with housing searches and with providing stabilization services in those homes, and they stay with the veteran until they're permanently housed and continue to assist with maintaining their housing.
How does HUD VASH fit into the 5-year plan to end homelessness among veterans?
So first, let's start with the plan. When President Obama took office, the administrator targeted support to military families and implemented a zero tolerance on homelessness. Shortly thereafter, Secretary Shinseki announced a 5-year plan to end homelessness. This plan included ready access for any homeless veteran that wanted to come into the system, and they could do that at any place in our system. These access points included 6 strategies. They are outreach to find veterans and to help educate them about homeless services, treatment services that provide the right level of care based on the veteran's preferences, prevention services to keep veterans from becoming homeless, housing and supportive services to help veterans access housing and stabilize in that housing, income employment services, and benefits to help maintain that housing, and community partnerships, understanding that VA could not do this alone and would need the help of community providers. HUD VASH is considered to be one of the most important ways that we go about ending homelessness because it provides that housing, permanent housing that is, and supportive services to veterans and their families to help them gain access to housing, maintain that housing in a permanent solution. So with this year's allocation through the first round, 56,970 vouchers were sent to the states. Both HUD and VA worked very hard to make sure this valuable resource goes to the areas where it's most needed for this level of care.
How does VA work with other community agencies to place services where they are most needed to help the veterans?
VA has worked really closely with HUD to ensure that veterans are able to receive housing and supportive services. Sometimes this included relaxing some of the standards so that veterans with very serious problems like criminal issues or problems with income or credit problems would be able to access this resource. We've also worked with agencies like Community Solutions in our Rapid Results Boot Camps, which includes VA, HUD and the public housing authorities, and community providers to help veterans rapidly get into housing and to help outreach veterans who don't typically enter our system through our normal means of care. This also includes supportive services for veteran families to find ways to better reach these veterans in community settings and to make sure that we end their experience with homelessness.
What is chronic homelessness, and why is the VA targeting these veterans?
In order to meet criteria for chronic homelessness, a person has to have a disabling condition, must have had 4 episodes of homelessness in 3 years, or 1 year of continuous homelessness. Most people in this category also have very serious risk factors like medical conditions, chronic medical conditions, serious mental illnesses, or substance use disorders that make them at risk for dying in the streets. According to HUD, about 16.8% of persons that are found to be homeless meet this criteria. They're also usually high-end users of costly medical and community services because they typically come into our system with very serious emergencies that require hospitalization. This might be avoided if these people had their own homes. In HUD VASH, there is a priority on assisting veterans with chronic homelessness. These veterans are often homeless and in the streets for many years, and they also are at risk for dying in the streets. We really wanted to make sure we reached out to our most vulnerable, needy veteran and make sure that they had access to housing services to end their homelessness for good. Our target is to serve 65%. The remaining 35% would be other high priority veterans, like veterans with families, women veterans, or our veterans of the most recent war.
What is housing first?
So VA is now transitioning to a new model of care. Housing First is an approach that centers on providing housing services to veterans first, and then wrapping community support services around that veteran after he or she has been housed. So the primary goal in Housing First is to provide housing first, and veterans are not required to participate in any treatment or transitional programs in order to get that housing. So there's no requirement that a veteran jump through any hoops in order to get housed. So what's different about this approach is that the housing is the primary source, and what we found is that this is the thing that really does end homeless, and it's the thing that veterans come to our system hoping to achieve. In Housing First, securing and assisting the veteran to stay in those permanent housing resources is always the first objective and is what really ends homelessness.
How is the VA moving towards the Housing First model of care?
Okay, so VA is moving towards Housing First, and it started with a demonstration in about 14 states or 14 sites across our continuum. These sites were provided with enhanced funding to hire assertive community teams. They received additional funding and technical assistance in order to make the model operational. We also worked with our housing providers and our public housing authorities to recruit landlords that would be willing to work with veterans who had a history of problems, which may include criminal issues and or problems with credit. So these veterans would typically not have been able to enter into our programs. We also worked with community providers to provide items like household goods, furniture, and the things that VA is not able to typically provide through our normal funding streams. Once this happened, we had to prepare our teams with being ready to address veterans in a different way. That included a more low-demand approach that did not require that veterans, again, jump through hoops or participate in treatment programs. And we use strategies that are called harm reduction that address the veterans where they are, met the veterans where they are, to help them into housing first.